Welcome to Vice's first ever Queers Built This. I guess the name is a little bit intuitive, but just in case it's not, we are here to highlight the importance of queer folks in the political realm, in the creative space, and so much more. Actually, let me take that back, every space we take up. So that's a point of tonight. And if you're wondering who I am, my name is Peyton Dix. I am a special projects editor and social media editor, and also allegedly a host now. I guess we're adding this to resume, sweetheart. And tonight I'm here for two main reasons. The first reason being, I'm going to be guiding you essentially through this really well curated night of amplifying queer voices and queer-led organizations. And I'm also here to peer pressure you into emptying those pockets. Yes, you watching right now, that's what we will be doing. So get your debit card out, get your credit card out, get your mom's debit card out, go crazy, get your sugar daddy's credit card out. He needs to chip in too. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. And the ways that you can donate is depending on where you're watching. If you're watching on YouTube, right down here, I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted to feel like I have a YouTube channel, but right down here you can donate. And then if you're watching on Queers Built This on the site, it's gonna be right up here. So maybe practice right now, go crazy, I don't know. We'll be hearing from three queer-led organizations. First, we'll be hearing from Black and Pink, then we'll be hearing from Irrelevant Press, and then we'll be hearing from See Black Women. All donations, by the way, will be going to Black and Pink, who you will hear more from right now. We're really excited and we're really lucky to have them take the time out. And I'm so excited to introduce to you David Booth. Take it away.
We were going to have another person join us tonight, Leslie Webster, but there were some technical issues, so Leslie couldn't join us. So I'm kind of modifying this on the fly a little bit. Fortunately, I was able to have a chat with Leslie earlier about the question, so I can still have her voice represented on this call. So our work at Black and Pink is driven by a very single question. Can the trans and queer community truly be free if our sexuality, gender identity, and gender expression, if that continues to be punished, criminalized, and stigmatized? And I use trans first because trans should come first. Trans people built this queer and this trans and queer movement. Trans people are the ones who've always been at the forefront, and so I want to make sure that we are always uplifting that trans women, especially Black trans women, are the ones who have carried this movement forward since Stonewall until today. And at Black and Pink, we're a national network of currently and formerly incarcerated trans and queer people and our allies. And we're committed to abolishing the criminal punishment system and to liberating trans and queer people living with HIV who are advocating for that system through three pillars of advocacy, support, and organizing. Black and Pink is actively working to strengthen our capacity for resilience in ourselves and in our collective movement to abolish the PIC. By PIC, I mean the prison industrial complex for anybody listening at home. It's a very big term to unpack, and do your research, do your homework. It's a great term to start getting some learning and some knowledge going. And so we do this collective movement through building networks and chosen families across prison walls and by developing community responses to address the trauma of mass criminalization. And we center the knowledge and experience of our formerly and currently incarcerated leaders to shape our priorities, strategies, and actions towards liberation. I myself spent time inside. My executive director, Dominique Morgan, who is a fantastic Black trans advocate, also spent time inside. So we are led by trans and queer people who've been there. We know the system. And we believe in the big picture vision of abolition. And as Dominique Morgan says, the system thrives off dismantling relationships, and relationships are how we as humans build and how we mobilize. Our pen pal program affirms that the value of incarcerated people doesn't expire, and that community is omnipresent. The more they try to break our bonds, we work to establish, maintain, and strengthen them. And Leslie, who is not here, is living proof of resilience, of strength, and of courage. And I'm sad that she's not here, but I'm also grateful that I was able to have a couple moments to spend with her over the last couple of days, just to really talk about the Pen Pal program and what it meant for her, and how do we build this transformative world. And so she was going to be chatting with us a little bit about how the Pen Pal program, what it meant for her. So the first question I had for Leslie was, Leslie, can you share one thing that brings you joy or pleasure right now? I think that's a very critical thing to be asking people, especially when things are so crazy and things are so chaotic. And what Leslie shared with me is that Leslie enjoys going to the club and dancing and socializing, being around people, just having a night where she can just kick her heels up and just dance and just enjoy herself. And I also asked her, so what was it like having a pen pal while you were inside prison? And again, she brought up this idea of connection and connection to care and connection to community. While she was inside, Leslie had actually one of our own board members, Reed Miller, who wrote to her all the time. And they would just chat about normal things, check in about her day, check in to see how she was doing, see what kind of resources or supports that she needed. And for a pen pal program, that's a very vital thing, because when you're writing to people on the inside, it affirms their dignity and it affirms their inherent value as a human being. And it was great to hear from Leslie that that's exactly what was happening. And then I asked her a little bit if she can talk about the pen pal and the things that, actually, no. I asked her kind of what her idea for liberation was for the trans and queer community. And a lot of it was just motivation. The pen pal program, provided her this sense of freedom, provided her this idea that even though she was trapped inside, that there was still a lot waiting for her when she would get out, that there were still things to live for. And the other piece too, I asked her is because I remember the time when I was inside myself and I didn't get very many letters. And while I was inside, it kind of destroyed me every time I saw people getting letters and, chatting with people, because I felt very much alone. And, for me, I'd also just lost my parents right before I went inside, like 3 weeks. And so I was trying to navigate grief systems, and I didn't have that community supports to help navigate me. And so Leslie really affirmed how devastating that must have been. And when I asked her like what it meant, Leslie had mentioned that it brought a smile to her face. Like it was the happiest day of the week for her to, be at mail call and to hear her name called out, and really lifted her spirits. And no matter what kind of stress or what kind of trauma she was experiencing that week, she felt very much alive, and very much, affirmed in just that she had some value. And I think that's the important thing, because at Black and Pink, we believe that the connections that are forged in the pen pal program are what is really going to help us demolish the barriers toward the prison industrial complex and allow us to continue to exist and to live and to love in a world where we're affirmed and we're supported in. And we start doing that with this pen pal program, because when you're writing to somebody on the inside, you get to see their dignity, you get to see their self-worth, you get to see that they're not just a conviction, that they're not just somebody who's a cog in the wheel. You get to see that they're human, that they're people who love fully, who express the fullest version of themselves, and it's beautiful. I for a long time I had a pen pal, and it was a really great experience just to reconnect with people and to remind myself that even though that I'm far removed from being incarcerated myself, that connection still lives on. Because at the end of the day, when you're writing a pen pal, when you're doing this prison abolition work, it's about realizing that we're all in it together. That connection between people is what reminds us that we can be supportive, we can be affirming, and we don't need the prison system to try and change that for us. I know that was quick, I know that was dirty, but I thank you all for tuning in and joining us right now. Yeah, and back to you, Peyton.
I actually want to thank you for emphasizing the importance of putting Black trans women first. I think that got lost, honestly, in like the LGBTQ movement, which is awful because it's like we're here because of them and we owe everything to them. So I just want to say thank you for that first.
I wouldn't be doing the work I was doing without them. And I need to uplift that and affirm that 100%.
Yeah. And I do wish Leslie could have been here with us, but I do have a question actually. What do you think is important in including in one of these letters? Is there anything you would emphasize to share when you're writing to someone?
I think it's just being authentic, and just showing up as yourself. Don't put on airs. Like, I can tell you that formerly incarcerated, currently incarcerated people, we will see through the crap real quick, and we will know real quick that you're not being authentic, and it's not pretty, because we don't put up with it. Because we are living in a world where you have to hide so much of yourself in order to stay safe. And so when you're writing with a pen pal, showing up as your fullest self, like, reminds them that there's a safe space for you. That you can share things with me because I'm showing up as my fullest self.
Yeah. And then can you just talk about a little bit of the origins of Black and Pink?
Oh, this is great. So Black and Pink, actually, so Jason Leiden founded Black and Pink back in 2005, and I owe so much gratitude and appreciation for Jason and for the community and for the world that Jason has built. And Jason built this because Jason was incarcerated himself, and when he got out, he realized that he was leaving people behind, and he wanted to make sure that he could still forge those connections and make sure that the people he'd left behind didn't feel left behind, and that they were brought along with him, and that they realized that they could still have that connection to care. And so Jason actually started having like community dinners, and he would have like just a group of people starting letter writing campaigns. And this is why the Pen Pal program is so important, is because Black and Pink was founded on this thing. Dominic actually calls it our legacy program because it's the one thing that we are always going to continue. It's the one thing that we're always going to make sure lasts into perpetuity.
Yeah. I also think there's something to point out about that you had actually mentioned about the dehumanization that we attribute to
Right.
people in prisons, even though, just before that, they were still people and we are all still people. And I love that the letter program recognizes that. Like, communication is such an integral part of being a human and being alive, and we need that. And also, I'm going to encourage everyone, with coronavirus going on, like, we have so much time, ample time to write many a letter. So I'm not just peer pressuring you to donate to Black and Pink, which, again, that's where these donations are going, here and here. But also be active. And then you write something? There should be something on Vice now.
I did.
Yeah, for some more information for people to find.
Mm-hmm. So, and I want to touch base back on that language thing real quick, because I'm a firm believer that language constructs our reality, like how we see things and how we say things. Like that word "I am" is the single most powerful statement the world has ever created, because once you say "I am," then that becomes a part of your identity. And so you won't ever really say I'm really formally incarcerated. I usually say I've experienced incarceration, because I don't tie my identity to my time inside. I just don't do it. And a lot of this is because we do dehumanize people. And one thing I push people so much is replacing words like convict or inmate or prisoner, and changing that language to people first language, like a person who's experienced the system or a formerly incarcerated person. Because once you start attaching that human behind the label, once you start attaching that person behind the label, you start to see, oh, they are more than just this person that we've locked inside in a 6x8 cell. And so I think that's a big piece. And with that thing with Nico and I collaborated on a piece. Nico actually did most of the writing. Well, actually, Nico did all the writing. I was just there to provide some quotes and talk through the process. But there's some links in that article that'll link back to our website that provides like guidelines for how to write to a pen pal, and then also the step-by-step process for how do you actually go about signing up for one. And it also provides some tips and tricks for chatting with a pen pal as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I'm going to flip a question that you brought up earlier, and I'm going to ask you, what's something that brought you joy, maybe this week, this month? Because I also am a strong believer of, the joy that we can have, we should hold on to. So I want to ask you, what brings you joy right now?
I think honestly, and I praise my executive director so much because I love my executive director. Dom and I have been friends for a long time, and I think the thing that brought me joy this and I might cry, so I'm just gonna forewarn you there. This year, like I have had a struggle with this movement where I get burnt out because I'm putting so much of my identity and so much of who I am into this work, and so I have a really hard time with self-care and a really hard time with boundaries. And this year, Dom allowed me to take some time off to figure out like what makes me tick, because I don't really know myself enough to know what are my hobbies, what do I like, what I don't like, because I've been doing this work for about 12 years now. And every day has been about how do I advocate, how do I organize. And so Dom provided me a lot of space this spring to just sit down and sit with myself and think, who are you and what do you want to do after this work is done? You are not this work, you are more than this work. And I think just that companionship and that solidarity with somebody who gets it and was able to say, take some time for you, has been like that just guiding light for everything right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you can. Self-care is the utmost important, and burnout right now is absolutely real. So I'm glad that you have that. And I just want to thank you so much for taking the time and being here. Thank you, David. Thank you, Leslie. Even though you're not here, you're here in spirit. Please, if you want more information, that article is up now on vice.com. So definitely find your way there and definitely donate while you're still here. Thank you, David, so much. And stay tuned if you're watching. We have a Relevant Press up next.
All right. Thank you all.
welcome back again. I'm Peyton Dix, your host for tonight. We just heard from Black and Pink, and that is where the money you are hopefully spending right now is going. Again, you can donate in the description link of the YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, right down here. And if you're watching on site, just right above my head. Right up there, like a crown. Oh, cute. Okay. So next up, we have Irrelevant Press. I am so excited to introduce them. They are a zine collective of queer women based in Brooklyn and Oakland. Their work focuses on identity and the internet and community building, and I'm so excited to present Holly Meadows-Smith and Ramona Sharples.
Thanks, Peyton. Hi, everybody. I'm Holly. I'm part of Irrelevant Press, which is run by myself and my three best friends, and really excited to be here in conversation with you, Peyton and Ramona, and excited to help raise money for Black and Pink. But just for some context on Irrelevant Press, we've been self-publishing for about 5 years or so now, and the project's evolved a bit over the years. It started out as a platform for us to self-publish our own work, and has really evolved into being much more focused on providing publishing and printing resources for the zine community or folks who are looking to become part of the zine community. And Ramona is somebody who we have collaborated with for a number of times over the past couple of years, and she makes beautiful work, but I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ramona. I started making comics when I began my gender transition a couple of years ago, and I wanted to share them with the world. And I got connected with Irrelevant Press, and they really helped me learn all about self-publishing and figure things out. And we've done all kinds of super cool projects, everything from zines to little sort of spiral-bound comic books to buttons and prints. Yeah, it's just been super fun working with them.
Cool. So being in the zine world, the reasons for and motivations behind why we self-publish and why we run a zine collective feels really obvious to me. But I feel like it's often an unanswered question for folks who I talk to who are outside of that world. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about why we put out our work like this and how the medium's played a role in queer culture and many other communities for a long, long time. For me personally, removing the barrier to entry for publishing, whether that is writing or art or photography, whatever it might be, is really the most important part of self-publishing. Putting out content outside of the bounds of what might be acceptable in mainstream media, I think has allowed subcultures and marginalized communities to share resources and spread awareness and really write histories that might otherwise have been overlooked or lost and really create their own narratives. I think, the punk scene and the Riot Girl movement are pretty famous for using zines as a medium, but that DIY ethos of creating and communicating across networks that might be off of the radar of big organizations like the New York Times or Penguin Random House can be found across many communities. In the past couple of weeks, I think we've seen so much incredible content being published on and offline in response to anti-racist organizing being done in protest of the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, just as an example. And I think being able to circulate information about, police brutality statistics or what it means to abolish the police or how to safely protest outside of sort of the mainstream has been huge. And, we could talk forever about the differences between digital and print zines, but I think the key takeaway is that being able to self-publish work like that is, keeping folks safe and informed, and has been a key part of Revolutions. I loved the section in Queers Built This, where Anna Merlin wrote about Vice Versa, which was the first lesbian magazine for folks that haven't had a chance to check that out yet. And it talks about how the creator wrote the zine sitting at her desk at her job and then took the zines to the club and distributed them. And I think that's so rad because that's still so much what the culture and community looks like. And Eliza had a great piece on Azalea, which was specific for Black and Brown folks in that community who weren't being represented in other sort of widespread zine community. So definitely check out that archive if you have a chance. But I think really the takeaway is, putting something in print, binding it, it gives folks a sense of legitimacy around their ideas, makes it easy to share and consume. And I think that is really powerful. So
yeah.
Go ahead, Ramon.
So I'm Yeah, I'm going to show some examples of some really cool zines that I've collected over the years, and I'm also going to show you how to make a zine of yourself, a zine of your own. It is super easy, and it's just a couple steps to getting something out into the world that reflects your passions, which is really cool. So this is kind of like when people talk about zines, I think this is what a lot of people have in mind. These are zines about things like direct action, creating social and political change, like moving from being an ally to being an accomplice, or like intervening in situations where you're like seeing conflict or some racist behavior. And these are all like, if we just look at these are just like regular sheets of paper printed out on a computer, folded in half and stapled. Super easy technique. I mean, you can see like they're like pretty lo-fi, but that is what that's the magic of zine making. I think like these are things that I've picked up at shows, that people have traded me, that I've gotten at zine fests. And talking about how zine making intersects with the queer community specifically, I think like queer voices are so underrepresented in all forms of media, especially publishing, because that's something that is like so controlled by like large organizations that queer people like so often don't have voices in. And there's just like such beautiful queer work that is being self-published. Like here is a workbook for sort of unlearning like harmful notions about gender that have been programmed into us by our twisted society. And that's like a super fun, like interactive zine. Everything from like beautiful sort of compendiums of like poetry and art and illustrations, to an index of restaurants in your area run by queer women, to information about like how to wear a binder safely. This is all stuff that doesn't often have a space in a lot of the mainstream media that we talk about, but for which this self-published medium is perfect for. And as some additional examples, these are some zines that some of my friends and I have made. And what's cool about these, they're like little tiny books. This is actually, Holly, you were talking about the sort of time-honored practice of making zines using time and supplies from your work. This is a zine that I made on the job last year in response to some news about the Department of Health and Human Services trying to redefine the word sex. There was some more news about that recently, but this was just like, I just kind of rage wrote this zine that's like a checklist of things that people who want to be allies to the trans community can do. And I was able to like write it, print it, fold it, and distribute it in the space of like 48 hours, which was really cool. And I was able to drop copies off at stores all around San Francisco and kind of get the word out. So why I like this format in particular is that it's this little sort of book structure, which is cool depending on the content that you want to share. It's got covers, it has 6 inside pages set up as 3 sort of spreads here, but it's made of a single sheet of paper, which means you can also unfold it, and it has space for a cool poster on the inside. So after you read it, you can hang it up in your house, and it's art, which is really cool. So we're going to learn how to make this today. So if we look at the format of this, there's a pattern to the pages. So we have our front and back cover down here in the corner, and then we have page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. And then the poster's on the other side. And then it has this sort of clever fold that I'll show you how to do in a sec. So if we look at a template for what that might look like, this is something that like when I'm making a zine, I kind of blew up the numbers really big here, but I like to like lay out a sheet of paper and I'll just sketch in the corner, like front 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that I can keep all my pages straight. And this like paper copy is what we refer to as a master. So this is what you can either like photocopy or scan or take to your local print shop, or a group like Irrelevant Press who can help you duplicate that master and sort of produce a larger batch so that you can distribute it. So when you have all your content kind of laid out on your pages, I drew another cool little poster on the back, Black Trans Lives Matter. Our master is good to go. And you don't actually have to fold it and cut it when it's a master. You can just leave it intact. But if you're doing a prototype or you want to make a beautiful like one-off handmade zine for someone, we can now do our special cutting and folding. So the way that we start is have it inside facing up. So here, that's our poster, and then fold it long ways. And when you're making zines, it helps to get your creases nice and sharp. You can kind of do that with your fingernail, or you can do it with the cap of a pen or something like that. Like I could use the handle of my scissors here, get a nice sharp crease there. Okay, so once you get that center line down, you unfold it, and then you fold it the other way. So same thing, we're just folding it in half this way. And once we have it folded in half like this, now we're gonna fold it into quarters. So just take this, fold it in half again, super easy, get that crease nice and sharp, flip it over, fold it again. So we have it all quartered up. And the shape that you should get at the end is the paper should make this W shape. And the W can be for, wow, what a cool zine. And then, so you have your W shape, and then you're gonna take it, you're gonna take your scissors, or you can rip it with your hand carefully, and you're just gonna make a slit right in the middle here. So just fold it and cut it right there up until this like halfway point that you made with your fold. So now the shape should look like this. It should kind of flop over a little bit. And this is the state that you want it to be in before you do the final like book fold. So the way you do that, your paper is all ready, the W with the slit, you fold it over along that first long center line, the very first fold that we did. And then you have this little diamond shape in the middle, right? So you take your diamond and you just squish it together until the whole zine makes an X, okay? And once you have this X shape, you can kind of see like the book sort of format is starting to like take shape. You can see the covers and then your numbers here. So then this last part is you just find the covers and you just fold them around the rest of the pages. And then you just get it all squared up. You get your final sort of creases down there. And now you have your own little self-published book. And so this is something that like I have like made like totally handmade, like not reproduced single copy one-off zines as like little cards, like a Valentine's Day card. That's super fun. Write it to your queer crush. I'm sure they'll love it. Or you can then, I'll show you an example. This is a zine that I made for an in-person zine workshop that I did a while ago, and it just has some writing prompts and some instructions and things. But this is the master. I kept it, and you can see this is all like just cut and paste. I just like did paper and pen and then cut everything out and kind of collaged it together with like little snippets of words from magazines and stuff. And I kept the master because now rather than photocopying a photocopy, if I want to make more copies, I can just come back to my master. It's in a special folder of zine masters, and I can make some more of those. So that's the basic technique for a one-page zine. I hope you all go out and write some beautiful, never before seen by the world content, because queer communities need their voices to be out there. We need to be heard. We need to share not just the hard things, the difficult things, the bad news, but also all of the ways in which we're thriving and all of the things that we love and the people we love and the places we love. Yeah. So I hope that you can use some of this as inspiration for your own zine making.
Ramona, I just want to say I love that. Also, we should be doing, that's how we should be like the new slide in DMs should be, let me actually make you a beautiful pamphlet about my feelings for you.
Yes. Oh my God, I love that. Yeah. Seriously. If someone were to come up and be like, Ramona, I made you this beautiful zine just for you, I would just die of excitement.
Me too. I miss, you know what, you both just reminded me that print is not dead. And this is like the new wave, and I love it, and thank you. I actually wanted to ask you a few questions. Holly, you had mentioned, I forgot the name of the person, and I'm sorry about that, but taking a zine to a club, which is also so cool and hot. Do you find that what's like your guerrilla marketing tactic for how you get your work out there?
Oof, yeah, that is a good one. I definitely have been guilty of like giving zines to crushes that I've made in the past. Not about them. I've never taken it quite that far, although I don't think I'm above that. Um, but I think in terms of like guerrilla market, I mean, we do a lot of stuff at zine fairs, which is kind of like structured marketing. But I think doing a lot of stuff on Instagram or just like mailing people zines. One time I wrote this zine that quoted a writer that I really like, and I like shipped it to her office and was like, here's the zine, and you're quoted in it. Yeah.
I love that. I'm actually curious about zine fairs. How do you both find those spaces to be? Do you think they're reflective of your lived experiences? Are they usually queer friendly? What has the experience been?
I mean, just in my experience, I happen to be fortunate to be living in the Bay Area, and like the queer zine community is alive and well. I'm really sad right about now. Normally, the San Francisco Zine Fest is happening, which is just this massive, massive gathering of all kinds of queer creators, and I love it so much. I always come home with like multiple tote bags full of zines and comics. So I really, really love it. I also had the chance to go to a zine fest in Austin, Texas, and I kind of didn't know what to expect. Like, I know that Austin is like a little bit of a like more progressive community in Texas, but like it was a like trans and intersex specific zine fest, and it was packed. It was like so lively. The community was amazing. There were so many amazing creators there, and I was just so inspired. It's like these communities exist everywhere. Your neighbors might be into zines. You never know.
Yeah, I would agree. And just to add, as somebody that's been both in the Bay and New York zine scenes, I totally agree with Ramona's sentiment. The East Bay Zine Fest is my favorite one. It feels very queer. There's a lot of POC in the room. In New York, I think we're lucky in that the DIY community is a lot of queer folks are in the DIY community. I always want to see more Black and brown folks in the room, especially at kind of like the bigger, more popular art book fairs or zine fairs. And so I think that there's definitely room for additional growth and change on that front.
Always room for improvement. Yeah.
Totally.
And one quick question for you before we wrap up. What was the first zine you ever made, if you remember?
The first zine Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the first zine that I made was a parody of a book by these alt-lit authors, which they ended up actually seeing on Twitter and like kind of like calling us out for, and we had to like do some damage control and let them know it was parody. But it was called Selected Non-Tweets, and it was just a selection of like quotes and Snapchat, TBT to Snapchat stories that we had like curated and aggregated across a bunch of our friends, and we made that like as a collective as our first zine.
That's amazing. I think my first zine, the first one that I like printed and produced and did real nice, was actually with Irrelevant, and it was a short comic that I made for an anthology that I published separately as like its own little 16-page thing. But the very first zine that I made was actually my local comic shop had like a Valentine's Day collage with these old comics, kind of like make your crush a card kind of thing, and I made a little like booklet that was all just like cutouts of little comic panels and stuff, and I still have that somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it is, but it was a good one.
I love how different those are.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Holly and Ramona, for coming on and giving us a little tutorial. We love that. So thank you so much for your time and your energy. And I, hope you both stay as healthy and safe as you can.
Thanks, Peyton. You too.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you so much.
Welcome back again. I am Peyton Dix, your host for tonight, and thank you for sticking with us, and thank you for donating. And I'm holding that pause because if you haven't yet, you still can, don't you worry. Right down here, if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Queers Built This, right up here, above my head. So please, I am, yes, peer pressuring you to donate. Thank you for joining us. We are back with the lovely Sam Lucchesa and Angela from See Black Women, a movement of artists, activists, and curators and more raised on Black feminist theory. We are so lucky to have them tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you to Queers Built This and to Vice for the invitation. My name is Angela Hennessy, and I'm here with Sam Vernon, Lucchesa Brampton Verissimo, representing the See Black Women Collective based in the Bay Area. We are a movement of artists, activists, curators, and writers raised on Black feminist theory. We center and promote the work of Black Women X through exhibitions, policy, and live activations. We are multi-generational, transnational. We are queer, cisgendered, non-binary, and expansive, intersectional, and revolutionary. Welcome. Today, we are thinking about the relationship between the living and the dead and how our making practices mediate this threshold. We are thinking about naming rituals as cross-cultural gestures of resistance, survival, belonging. From the mourning body to the post-mortem body, we speak the names of the dead as repair and restoration of lineage. We speak the names as protestations against systemic violation of Black and brown bodies. From police brutality to pandemic upon pandemic, we speak the names. We speak the names those remembered, lost, found, forgotten, known, unknown, never known at all. The names redacted, erased, disappeared, material be the witness. We speak the names of the dead on our breath, on our mouths, in our tongues. We speak the names. Who will speak your name upon your death? As we enter into ritual time and space, as the veils thin, who are your dead? Who do you want to invite or acknowledge today? Who is right there?
Right when I think I've memorized all their names, Black. When I say Ashe after every name, trans. At my altar, in the streets, when I wake up, when I light a candle, power. I learn that one more name has been added to the list, matters. Right when I feel out of breath and out of energy, Black. I remember that we must treasure our breaths and hold them close as we breathe in and out. Trans. Because the list has gotten too long. Power. There are too many people who no longer get to breathe. Matters. Right as I see my trans siblings smile, I think about how I want them to shine bright forever and feel supported, loved, prioritized, cherished in a world that is hard to live in. Black, trans, power matters. I ask you to say these names with me, to say Ashe together after each name. See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Kirvan, fortune, Ashe.
Ashe.
See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Ria Milton, Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Dominique Remy Fells, Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Tony McDade, Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Nina Pop, Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Yahira Nesby, Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Brianna, BB Hill. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Italy Marlowe. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Malaysia Booker. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, be, love, Slater. Ashe.
Ashe.
See,
Ashe.
hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Bailey Reeves. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Kiki Fantroy. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Bubba Walker. Ashe.
Ashe.
See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Tracy Single. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Leilene Polanco. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Black Trans Power Matters. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Black Trans Power Matters. Ashe.
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 See, hear, trust, love, protect, pay, Black Trans Power Matters. Ashe.
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 Grieve on the daily. Make time every day to grieve. Make grieving out of everyday gestures. Make folding the laundry grieving. Make sweeping the floor grieving. Make dancing grieving. Make drawing grieving. Make painting grieving. Make lighting candles grieving. Crying is beneficial, but not required. Just say, I am grieving right now, while you are doing whatever you are doing. Say what it is you are grieving and be specific. I'm grieving gun violence. I'm grieving another Black person killed by police. I'm grieving Black and brown bodies left in the street. I'm still grieving slavery. I'm grieving enslaved people buried in unmarked graves. I'm grieving grief that was never grieved. I'm grieving the Buffalo massacres. I'm grieving that I stand here on stolen land. I'm grieving the existential crisis that is this country, America, Turtle Island. I'm grieving gold and black things, extractions and commodities of the colonial project. I'm grieving hairdressers who keep trying to colonize my hair. I'm grieving my auntie who died, but no one wanted to say she died, so we stood around her dead body, knowing what we didn't know, as if we didn't know it. I'm grieving pussy grabbing. I'm grieving the rape of my mother, my friends. I'm grieving the little girl that I was before. I'm grieving women violated on the front steps of their homes. I'm grieving the murder of trans women and men, of gender nonconforming people trying to survive in a binary world. I'm grieving that I have to think twice before I kiss the one I love in public. I'm grieving love being criminalized. I'm grieving queer people murdered on the dance floor. I'm grieving 49 dead. I'm grieving the ghost ship and those last text messages and phone calls made to family and friends, mothers and fathers that said simply, I love you. I'm grieving the way the depth and the width of one wound is measured against the depth and the width of another. Must the woundedness be a hierarchy too? Grieve with instead of for. Do your own grief work. Don't steal other people's grief because you feel guilty or ashamed. Do your own grief work. Don't run away from your grief. Don't dump your grief on other people. I'm grieving a lineage of songs, the songs of laboring, of birthing, of loving, of fighting, of weeping, wailing, and keening. The old songs of the Irish, the German, the English, the African, and the Black women from which I both descend and arise. Grieve near water, if possible, the ocean, the sea, the river, perhaps the Cannonball River, or the Missouri, the Tallahatchie. Grieve a trail of tears. Grieve the Ma'afa. Grieve the cotton gin fan that sunk the body in the river. Grieve the abducted body wrapped with barbed wire. Grieve the mutilated body whose face was no longer recognizable. Grieve the body beaten, abused, shot in the head, eye gouged out. Grieve a boy's body found 3 days later. Grieve that we needed to see the body 3 weeks later in an open casket encased in glass. Grieve the mother that needed us to see her son's body. Grieve the body exhumed 49 years later because again we needed to see the body. Grieve abstraction of numbers, of words, of syllables that fail in the face of death. Grieve the attempt to make meaning of death that we do not know the meaning already. Grieve so your children won't have to do it for you. Grieve so your children's children won't have to do it for you. Grieve so your children's children's children won't have to do it for you. Grieve so your children's 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 children and theirs won't have to do it for you. Grieve near water, your kitchen sink as you do the dishes, a puddle in the street. Make a grief ritual wherever you are. Invite your dead people to witness you. When others, the living, see you grieving, they might think you are crazy. They might call you crazy. You are not. They might think you have come undone, and maybe you have, finally. Grieve because you love. Grieve because you are alive. Grieve because you are a human being in a body, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out.
I'd like to acknowledge the creative genius of Alicia Wormsley, whose work is depicted as a billboard which states, "There are Black people in the future." I would also like to acknowledge a playground sign installed at King's School in Portland, Oregon, which reads, "I dream of a world full of sounds and rhythms." See Black women. We are queer, expansive, and revolutionary. We reject the disappearance of our historic role in building and sustaining movements in defense of Black life. We reject the denial of our legitimate demands for respect and recognition. We reject the erasure of our intellectual, artistic, and political work in the service of Black liberation. We are not responsible for our experience with racism. Hear Black women. We will not allow ourselves to be tokenized, pathologized, policed, or silenced by dangerous preconceptions. When we speak, listen with compassion. Listen to what we say. We have been telling our stories for generations. It's time we are truly heard. Racism is not a lesson that we deserved to learn. Trust Black women. We speak from a place of expansive understanding and knowledge, which encompasses the most marginalized among us. Trust us to lead the way. Love Black women. True compassion means to support, respect, uplift, and care for Black women. Hold us in esteem as mothers, daughters, lovers, sisters, and friends. Protect Black women. Our bodies are sacred, our spirit invaluable. None of us is truly free until the most vulnerable among us is protected and uplifted. Pay Black women. Economies have been built on our backs. The exploitation of our labor ends now. Pay us for our contributions to society and pay us well. By raising up Black women, we all rise. See Black women, hear Black women, trust Black women, love Black women, protect Black women, pay Black women. See Black women, love Black women, hear Black women, trust Black women, protect Black women, pay Black women. See Black women, hear Black women, trust Black women, love Black women, protect Black women, pay Black women.
Let's take a collective breath for those we have named, who we mourn and grieve and honor, and who we will never stop saying their names. Thank you for making rituals with us tonight. We invite you to continue honoring the lives that have been murdered beyond tonight. In the streets and at home and on your altars and in your hearts. As our dear sister Audre Lorde says, revolution is not a one-time event. We must commit to doing this work forever. We invite you to make your own rituals and share them with us. Step 1. Inspired by the ritual we just created with you all tonight, make your own ritual in those ways or a form that feels best for you. Step 2. Document that ritual in any way you like. Could be photograph, video, a drawing, a collage, a written story or poem. You choose. And step 3, share it with us. Use the hashtag #SeeBlackWomenRitual and tag us on Instagram at @SeeBlackWomen. Sam is holding up the text, and you can also find it in the chat. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I was muted. Lucasa, Angela, Sam, I cannot thank you enough for your energy, your words, your work. Thank you for coming on and giving us this gift.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You.
And for those who are still watching, in these last few seconds, you can still donate, and you will be able to donate afterwards. So don't worry. I know you were really concerned and about to ask that. Thank you, though, for those who have donated tonight. Thank you for watching and joining and learning. We really were given a gift from all 3 different presenters, and we are so thankful for their energy and their time. And I'm thankful for your energy and your time for participating with us tonight. And who knows? We'll see you at the next Queers Built This.